Hello friends and welcome. Patch 7.35D just came out. Yes, not Crownfall, I know, but there are some cool stuff in this patch. One, some adjustments to the broken stuff in this patch, but two, some matchmaking changes which I think are pretty nifty. First, there's been a change to the way banning works in ranked gameplay. So here on your hero screen in this top right, you can now pick 4 heroes to put here. It can't be the same hero, so pick the heroes you want to put. I haven't decided if I'm going to put any in here, but I'm sure like for a lot of you, maybe Tinker goes in there, maybe like Ricky, so ban out those 4 heroes, and then at least one is guaranteed to be banned in every game you play, but it's random which of the 4 heroes that is. And it might be more, but it would be because someone else in the game also has that hero banned, because they also have put like Tinker, Ricky, all of that. And you can change this whenever you want. You can read about it more yourself in their blog post about the patch, but the logic for this is that there's a lot of cheating software that could tell you like, oh, you should ban this hero because this guy's a hero spammer. And it was pretty unfair for those of us that don't cheat. We don't get that information. So by doing it this way, they're going to completely skip out the banning phase. It's just going to start straight into the draft. From what I understand, I haven't actually played a game, but supposedly that's the way it'll go. And that way, no one gets that unfair advantage. It's just picking from the bans you have already pre-selected, and if it hits your spammed hero, then unlucky, but if not, then you're good to go. Another change that they're making, and it's experimental, so it's only going to be available for Dota Plus users right now, but when you queue for a match, it's going to pop something like this up, and you can choose whether to accept or to queue again. It's going to tell you a little bit about what region you're going to be playing, the skill range, and then behavior. Again, read about it more if you want, but the logic here is that we've been complaining. We complain a lot, but we complain about the types of games we get, and people want different things. Some people want like really close games, some people want really nice people, and so now you can look at this and go, I want a really high skill game, I'm not going to accept this match, queue again. Or you can say, I just want friendly players, behavior score is good, fantastic, let's go. I'm sure they'll be collecting a lot of data on this to see what people prioritize, and it might adjust things going forward. Personally, I will be highly prioritizing behavior score, which is not perfect either, because I know people with perfect behavior score are not so perfect in my games, but I do think if a lot of us prioritize behavior and we're willing to wait for longer games to get all well-behaved players, I think that shows what the player base cares about. Now, I can't really control that. I guess I can because I'm a content creator. I can push that idea, right? But essentially, people will just accept the games they want to accept, and I'm sure the data will go into something. But my platform here that, I would push, I feel that a lot of us get frustrated with Dota, not because the games are bad or whatever, but because of the toxicity. And I feel like if we make it clear as a player base, like that's what we care about, just we want non-toxic players, then maybe Valve would put more emphasis, 1, on the matchmaking of behavior, but 2, tweaking that system more to, punish the people who are toxic, go in their own games. Those of us who are, friendlier, nicer, then we get in our own games, and maybe our skill range is all over the place, and maybe we have to wait for longer games, but we're getting nicer games, less toxicity. I don't know if that's how any of that actually works, but that would be my logic. Let's get into the actual patch. BKB active, how many of you knew that was called Avatar? 5-second nerf. It is what it is. It's a nerf to the item, but ultimately you gotta buy it when you gotta buy it, so I don't think we have to think too hard on it for now. Divine Rapier is being switched up. It's kind of interesting. So it used to just give the 350 flat damage bonus and 25 spell amp. Now it's going to give 100 damage, and then you toggle it. And depending what you toggle, you either get an additional 250 damage to bring you back to the 350, or you toggle it to the spell amp plus 25% spell amp, and you'll get 100 damage plus that spell amp, which is really interesting. I think what they're targeting here is the combination, 2 things. 1, the combination with Revenant's Brooch, which was way too strong, and it kind of defined our ultra late game in Dota, just everyone building Revenant's Brooch, Divine Rapier. It's not really, I guess, what they imagined, so this is going to hurt that. You can't double dip, get the damage and the spell amp for all of your like magic damage in the late game. It also targets certain heroes who were way too good with Divine Rapier because they use both. So for example, Puck or Lena, they both put out tons of spell damage, but they also put out tons of right-click damage, and so Divine Rapier was particularly good on them compared to, say, Phantom Assassin, who is really more about just that physical damage, and maybe like a Zeus, who's more about that magic damage. They don't really use both components, and so Divine Rapier was a lot better on some heroes than others. This toggle, I believe, is aimed at that. Small buff to Scotty, it's a little bit better. Don't think it's a huge change. Helm of the Dominator, I do think this will be a good change, which, disclosure, it's been a few hours since the patch. It's all theories at this point, guys. I'll do a future one whether the data settles and all that. But Chen became broken partly because when he uses Holy Persuasion, he gets the gold from the creeps. No XP, but you get the gold, and that's huge for your farming. Helm of the Dominator is now going to do the same thing. And I think this is really big for the Zoo heroes because Zoo heroes are all about tempo, right? And if you're buying Helm of the Dominator, you're probably buying Helm of the Overlord. And the sooner you get that, the better. So Helm of the Dominator is a 45-second cooldown, so is Overlord. And that kind of means like you can essentially take over a hard camp creep with the Dominator every 45 seconds. You're not going to get any XP, which I think is a little bit of a downside. And if you are committed to farming, maybe you won't do this. But especially if you like just took bottom tower, you're gonna like go walk mid, you're going through the enemy jungle, yeah, just like boop, steal the hard camp creep, instantly get the gold for it, keep going. That is effective GPM increase, right? Depending on what hard camp you get. But I mean, it could range somewhere between like 50 to 100 GPM. I don't know the exact math on what creeps and a like 45-second cooldown, all that. But it is money you literally just did not have before. And that's really big because that could push your Helm of the Overlord faster by maybe another minute or two, which is really good. It helps you get another tower, another kill faster, which helps you snowball further. Javelin and everything it builds into got nerfed, so 5% off the proc chance, which I didn't think these items were broken, but they're all nerfed now, so a little bit worse, but I think you still buy them when you need them. Magic Stick is being nerfed, which is the first time in a while that I remember. So from 13 seconds to 17 seconds on the cooldown, Magic Wand 13 to 15. I don't fully understand why we're doing this, but if I had to guess, a lot of pros are buying Magic Stick really early, even in their starting items, even in games where it doesn't seem like the best Magic Stick game, because there's so much emphasis on the early laning stage that people want as many charges for as much extra regen as possible for the turn potential, all of that, to pick up these early kills and then snowball the game forward. And in these early fights, you will see multiple Magic Sticks used. Bumping it from 13 to 17 seconds means it's much less likely that you'll get to use multiple sticks in the same fight, and that might get you killed, for example, because you don't get to pop a 10-stick charge, pick up a couple more, and then pop like 3 more charges after those 13 seconds, and so you die because of that. I guess this is a buff to spell spammers in the laning stage, where they have to spam the spells in the fight, and so like their opponents were sometimes getting like multiple uses of Magic Stick, but besides that, because everyone bought this item, I guess it's a blanket nerf to everyone to be like, stop building Magic Wand so much, build some of our other items, such as our Null Talisman, which we're going to buff a little bit. I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. For now, I would still just buy this item. Slight nerf to Manta, also slightly confusing. Don't fully understand that, but I mean, there are a couple popular heroes, and they pretty much always build the Manta as opposed to SNY, so maybe that's why they kind of want to push people to be able to choose between the two options. Null Talisman did get buffed. Not fully sure who's going to build this, but 1 mana regen up to 2 is quite nice, so maybe some of those intelligence heroes who want a lot of mana might return to Null Talisman instead of building like the Wraith Bands and the Bracers. Small Oblivion Staff nerf on the mana regen. Same with the Orchid, just kind of like small nerfs across the board. Same with the Bloodthorn, which I think is fair because Orchid became very popular when they decreased the total price. So there have been a lot of early Orchid purchases, which you can still do. You will still get the silence, but the aggressive potential from like the mana regen, int for those in heroes, a little bit extra damage, soul burn, requiring more mana, so maybe you get to spam out less spells, right? Like that element is being nerfed a bit. Parasma is insane, and they're going to reduce the damage a bit, so the intelligence as damage over time went from 100 to 75. I think that's okay. Parasma is still going to be a really good late game item. It was just doing like way too much damage. But I think like a really nice part of Parasma is the fact that you reduce the enemy's magic resistance, and that part did not get touched. So overall, I think it'll still be a solid item. Revenant's Brooch is no longer going to work on critical strikes, or I guess swap that. You can't critically strike when you have a Revenant's Brooch active. You guys can't see it, but I have a bunch of Daedalus in the inventory and the Revenant's Brooch active, so when you attack, you just cannot critical strike anymore. You see, like, even when I get the death mark or whatever it's called, the next attack isn't a crit. It's an interesting change directed at the late game Revenant's Brooch plus Divine Rapiers plus like Daedalus, and you would just like delete people sometimes. They don't even get to react because you actually just like remove the entire health bar at once, and it's just like not that fun, I guess. I mean, it's fun for the people doing it, but there's like, it feels like there's very little counterplay to that. So I think that's what they're going for. If you are using Revenant's Brooch, it is because you are trying to get around the ethereal defensive mechanic, or because you're trying to get past the armor, which you can do as long as you attack, and you attack fast, but not if you depend on critical strikes. So it should be a little bit more consistent damage output as opposed to like your entire health bar disappearing off of a lucky crit. Shadowblade and Silver Edge both get 3 more seconds on the invis duration, and these items only have like 25 to 20 second cooldown, so you're gonna be invis for a long time. This might be a menace for pubs. I don't really know if we'll see pros like suddenly start to buy these items because they haven't really been that popular, especially since Silver Edge, like it's just a break, but there are other things that break right now, so people haven't really felt the need to get this. Just a few neutral item changes. Royal Jelly, there's some numbers changing around here. It's going to take less time and heal more. It ends up being the exact same. This is overall a buff, so this heal could have been canceled by attack damage from the enemy heroes, and so you had to kind of like just wait 10 seconds before you could get back into doing anything. But now it's only going to take 8 seconds. You'll heal the exact same amount. So this is overall good for the item. Grove Bow is losing 25 attack range. I think it's totally fair because there's a couple heroes like Muerta and Lina. This Grove Bow was literally better than a lot of tier 3s and a lot of tier 4 items. And so they would just hold the Grove Bow for like the entire game. And that's too good. So gonna reduce the attack range on it, which it's still really good for those heroes. They'll still use it, maybe even into the tier 3, maybe into the tier 4. It just won't be as good. Light Collector is losing 5% movement speed. So say you have like 350 movement speed, that's about like 17 movement speed you're losing from having this item, which is almost a Windlace. So pretty big nerf to this item in my opinion, because I feel like the movement speed was the major component that many people got it for, and then the regen was nice, but you don't always get to control, like, is it day or night? What do I need at that time, right? So it was just kind of like extra, but it's really about the movement speed. So I'm curious if people will still end up picking this. I'm kind of leaning away from it, just reading about it, but I will try it and we'll see. The regen reduction is also being further reduced when you're near a tree, but I really don't know like how many people even think about that. So I don't know if that's like a major thing. Doubloon, so when you're in mana mode or health mode, the regen is going to be higher than it was like passively. Like it always has the 5 regen for health and 2.5 mana regen, but it'll be a boost to whatever you are in. I'm gonna have to play around with it more, guys. Doubloon really was not popular, but it's a pretty good regen item now, I guess. So maybe I don't know, guys. I will try it. I'll let you know. Couple neutral creep changes. So the bounty gold is going down on the mud golems and Satyr Mindstealers. I don't think it's like a massive deal. The XP that you get from stacking. So if you didn't know, if I stack a camp, I'm going to get 30% of the XP of the camp that spawned after I stacked it, but now it's going to go down to 25%. At the pro level, there's been a lot of stacking going on and a lot of flash farming cores, then just like clearing out a bunch of stacks in the early game. So going to be a little less efficient. At the pro level, this might shift their priorities a bit. In your pubs, I don't think you really have to think too hard on this. If you have a chance to stack, I recommend doing so. If you have a chance to like be active, go do that. I will let you guys know if this ends up being a bigger change than I think it is right now. Okay, for hero changes, there's a good chunk of them. Disclaimer again, right? Like, I don't really know how this will play out over the next, like, it's only been a couple hours since this came out, but I'll give you guys the read on what I think looks good and what seems to have been nerfed a lot. Ancient Apparition, buff to Cold Feet, the mana cost is going down. I still think AA is like a little bit of a weak laner on their own, which is kind of why it's been out of the meta, but there are some heroes who can combo with Cold Feet, so maybe that combination plus the fact that there are a good amount of regen, like high regen heroes, and now your ult can like affect it, or like always could, right? Maybe, but I do think like AA still feels relatively weak in the lane at the highest levels. In pubs, if you want to play AA, probably okay. Batrider was one of the best supports, as I mentioned in the tier list that I just made as part of getting them to invalidate me and release the patch, doing my part. He's being nerfed. So the damage ends up being very similar. Level 1 and level 4 are the same. The middle levels are like 10 damage worse or something. The big thing is that the duration is going down, which for damage is like whatever, but the slow on this ability, which you guys actually can't see when I hover over, it's 15% at level 1, which is where many people left this skill as a 1-point wonder, then max Firefly, often maxing Sticky Napalm after, but sometimes maxing Flame Break second. The point is, you stick at 1 point on Flame Break for quite a while, and you just lost 3 seconds of a 15% slow. So that is extremely painful for this hero. The level 15 talent, a slight nerf to the cooldown. I think this is like whatever compared to this. This is the big pain point. Seeing as Batrider was one of the best heroes in the game, I don't know if this kills the hero, but it really hurts the hero. So I think we're much less likely to see like a bunch of first phase early pick Batriders. It might wait till, okay, yeah, it's a really good Batrider game where he is not super dependent on Flame Break, so we can play him. In your pub games, I think it's probably okay if you still want to keep going for him. Beastmaster's getting a small nerf to his Inner Beast passive. It's nothing crazy. I think the bigger buff to Beastmaster is that the Helm of the Dominator got buffed, so that could be really good for this hero, but only time will tell through stats and trying it out, which I have not. I have neither of those right now. Bloodseeker hasn't been considered very good for quite a while. He's going to get 2 base agility and thirst. If you didn't know, when you kill units, the self-healing, that wasn't lifesteal technically, but now it is technically lifesteal, and that matters because we have a stat called lifesteal amplification, such as on the Sange. So all of his like thirst healing is now potentially buffed up if he has any item that gives him this. So that could lead to a lot more sustain, especially like in the middle of a team fight if there's like creeps dying nearby, or he picks up a kill on a hero and he gets like a big chunk of heal, which allows him to kill the next hero. Could be very nice for this guy. Kind of don't think it's enough to fully bring him back, but maybe as the other carries are getting nerfed, maybe it does, like maybe he goes up. Centaur Warrunner, one of the best offlaners and sometimes supports. Now 20 damage flat from each level of Hoof Stomp, so that's kind of painful. Only 70 damage at level 1's pretty sad compared to where it used to be before. The level 10 talent nerf, 1 HP regen off. I think not the end of the world. It's a little sad. I think you can still play him. Maybe he's not like one of the best offlaners, but still going to be solid overall, and you'll get past like the early levels of Hoof Stomp where, because you sometimes have like you max Hoof Stomp in some builds, which means you get up to like the 280 damage, which is less, but it's not that bad. It's really like that early level where you use Hoof Stomp to secure a range creep while also getting off like 2 attacks on the hero. Like that's being hurt. CK dropped out of the meta after winning TI. They're going to give him more Reality Rift cast range, and then Chaos Strike creep damage multiplier going up again. This is such a fine line, the Chaotic Strike on the creep, because it means he kills creeps faster, it means he lifesteals more, and he farms faster. And that's why he got broken, and then they took it away, and that's why he became bad, and now we're like slowly kind of trying to find the middle ground. So we'll keep an eye on Chaos Knight. It could be good. Chen was specifically called out in the blog post, and he is the most contested hard support in the pro level. Let us see what he's got. It is a slight movement slow on Penitent. And then Divine Favor is a pretty chunky armor reduction, like 3 armor at level 1 by the max level at 6 armor. I kind of don't think it's quite enough because Divine Favor is sometimes left at a 1-point skill anyways, and you max the other 2 abilities, which a 6% slow is not going to be a huge deal. So I think Chen's still going to be really good. Maybe he is not perma-banned in the first phase, but I still think he'll be highly contested. Now, potentially, Helm of the Dominator, if that rises in popularity, maybe that's a counter where, like, Chen walks at you with an army and you're like, one of those is mine now, but he'll still have 3. So, this nerf does not quite feel enough. Maybe I am undervaluing how big of a nerf Divine Favor is, but like I said, some builds, you just leave it at 1 point, and you just build auras and like do the same Chen stuff, which this still looks like he can do that. For Clockwork Power Cogs, the mana you burn, 50% of it will be dealt as damage, which is kind of cool, but again, the build right now is kind of like max Battery Assault, then max Rocket Flare, and then Power Cogs last, which means at the end is like that extra damage is not a huge amount. Now, maybe the build will shift. People will start getting Power Cogs earlier to make use of that damage, because the damage is not bad. It would be like 70 extra damage at max level, but that doesn't really, like, that damage compared to Battery Assault is just not it, right? So I feel like you still max Battery Assault no matter what, and that means you're not getting to, like, the extra Power Cogs level till later. So it's like 25 extra damage on Power Cogs at your level 1 skill point, and that's like, I mean, okay, it's a buff, but I don't know if it'll really change the hero. Crystal Clone being nerfed, so 100 mana on the casting cost. I think this is totally reasonable. This does not hurt her early laning stage at all, which is the big reason why she is picked. Crystal Clone will still be an AoE creep clear for the creep camps you stack, the waves, stuff like that. Still think it's a really solid ability. It might be a little harder in team fights because it's an extra 100 mana and you might use it multiple times in a fight. So you may have to be a little more careful with the spells you choose to use, but overall, still think she's going to be a fantastic support. Dark Willow, Bedlam is going to last for 0.5 seconds longer. Bedlam attacks every 0.25 seconds, so there's 20 instances of damage. Now it's going to go up to 22. So that's like a nice extra chunk of damage. You might be able to pick up a kill you otherwise did not. Might also help farming speed, I suppose. Disruptor, I'm pretty excited about this change. So the slow duration, which is a 100% slow and attack slow. It used to be like 0.1 scaling up to 0.4. It's now just a flat 0.4. So I think this helps a lot. There are 4 Thunder Strikes, which means there are 4 chances where you can just outright click the enemy because they were about to attack and they got struck and they go, "Hoo! Wah!" Right? So I think the right click follow-up around Thunderstrike is a lot better. Pretty excited for it. There are still stronger laners, so, not fully sure, especially with some of the longer range supports that are popular, such as techies who just, like, outrange you and don't even let you Thunderstrike. I think it's a great step in the right direction. If this is not the meta for Disruptor, it could be coming with buffs like this. Dragon Knight nerfs. So honestly, this seemed like a bug anyways. The illusions, like as your Dragon form was ending, you could pop Manta and then the melee form would still apply the stuff. That seemed like a bug, so I understand removing that. And then Corrosive Breath being reduced, I think also fair to limit the amount of like, I don't want a high ground, so I just keep sending my illusions. 1 hit, or like you walk up, you hit once, 5 seconds of dot damage on that tower. It just seemed a little too good, right? So bring it down to 3 seconds. It means when you're actively attacking, it's still the same, but when you're like doing that one-off poke, it's worse. I think that's a fair nerf to one of the best heroes in the game. Level 15 talent, slightly nerfed, 100 less damage. I say slightly, 100 health is a good chunk. But 300 is still quite nice. And the other talent, 0.4 seconds of Dragon Tail stun, honestly pretty solid. So maybe we'll see people start to move over towards that, or they'll still just take the 300 health. Drow Ranger, cooldown on multi-shot going down as you leveled up. So at max level, 3 seconds less. The talent being changed a little bit to match. This should be, I mean, it is literally good for her, but I don't know if it'll really bring her back into the meta because I'm pretty sure when you max out multi-shot, it's still not enough to like really clear creep waves anyways, but I mean, it'll help, right? And so if this is enough, sure. I kind of think the other, it's not so much Drow I'm looking at, but at the other carries, because we have heroes like Sven and Faceless Void, Slark, they're all meta, and they can like get on top of Drow Ranger really easily, and she doesn't like that. So the fact that she's like maybe farming a little faster, doing a little more damage, like that's not the issue. It's that there's meta heroes, offlaners, mids, they all get on top of her and break her passive. So that's the bigger issue for Drow right now, in my opinion. I don't think this this buff is enough to bring her back, unless the nerf to the other heroes is enough to take them out of the meta. 30 more damage on Rolling Boulder, absolutely sick. Absolutely not enough to bring that hero back, in my opinion, but I don't play that much Earth Spirit, so I could be wrong. Ember Spirit, base charged restore time, 3 seconds less. He really got hurt by the Mage Slayer change, so his win rate dropped a lot. This will help him a little bit more, but not bring him back to like where he was so broken with that Mage Slayer. Faceless Void, one of those heroes I was just talking about. Time dilation, going to be nerfed. So the slow per cooldown going down, you're going to have to actually level up this ability if you want it to do as much as it used to do. which I kind of think people still won't do. I think people will still leave it at a level 1 point time dilation, and he just won't be such like a safe pick. Like, people are still doing a lot of Faceless Void. He's just like too good. The Chronosphere in the late game, right? It's just so strong. This makes time dilation worse, which means it might be harder to pick up early kills that helps speed him up before. That's, it's literally worse. I think he's still in the meta, though. I don't think this is quite enough. Hoodwink, one of the top meta 4s, level 10 talent, 1 second. I see. She's still great. Kunkka, level 15 talent, torrent damage, knockup duration decreased by 5%. Still good. Leshrak, level 20 talent, pulse nova damage decreased from 40 to 35. Still good. I mean, jokes aside, they're nerfs, but like, it's not that big of a nerf. And these are talents, so like all the early game stuff that these heroes bring are fine. Kunkka's hurts the most because the water park build is the most popular on Kunkka right now, but it still kind of does what it needs to do, and I think you'll still see people pick this hero and still go the exact same build. Lich, Frost Shield buffed, and Chain Frost you can now use on the Ice Spire if you want. I mean, ideally you probably wouldn't, but it's there now, an option, especially if you can like hit the Ice Spire and it bounces further than your cast range. Could be cool. I don't think this is enough to bring him into the pro meta, but Lich is pretty solid in your pub games, and so now he's just a little bit better. That's pretty nice. Lifestealer getting nerfs across the board. I feel like he just came back into the meta, but losing 3% movement speed on Rage, Infest, less cast range, and then Open Wounds, less cast range. This hero does not like being kited. He does build Radiance, and that helps, but he still wants to attack, right? So all of these hurt that, and I think he'll still be okay, especially in the right game, like okay to good, but he's being brought down, and I think it's a lot harder to pick, like, I don't know, you need like more to enable the Lifestealer now with these nerfs, I think. Mars, nerf to the ultimate, 10 seconds at level 1, ends up being the same. Slight nerf to the talent. His Revenant's Brooch late game build also got nerfed with the changes, so like, wham, but also fair, right? I think you'll still see pros pick him. Like, what he offers is still pretty solid, but just a little bit worse, less active plays by 10 seconds in the early game before you can like look for another arena play. Medusa's in an okay spot. She does get picked up occasionally. She's been gaining popularity since Diffusal started to drop off with the Disperser nerf. You'll still see anti-mages picked as a response to her. Sven's also kind of good against her, right? So I still think you need to like see the right draft for a good Medusa pick, but slightly buffed, so I mean, we'll still continue to see her on occasion. Sagan is apparently getting old because Mirana keeps getting slower and slower. Kind of fair because this hero has been really good, but it's just so funny to see her on that, like on the mount, and then like be such a slow hero. Slight nerf to Naga talents. Necrophos getting a lot of kind of nice buffs to the talents, but ultimately I still think there's quite a few heroes that are good versus Necrophos that, like, that's the bigger issue of why we're not seeing Necrophos in the meta, not strictly because the hero himself is not good enough. All right, Pango, guys. I gotta say, I don't know how we keep doing this. So, strike count decreased from 4 to 3. Really cool idea, conceptually. Because right now, Diffusal and many on-hit items, so Diffusal, Maelstrom, Basher being some of the most common ones to see, because each swashbuckle strike counts as a hit, it applied that. So you would get hit by Diffusal 4 times, lose a bunch of mana. So nerfing that, very cool idea. Hurts Diffusal, reduces the chance. Like, Basher was almost guaranteed, right? I mean, not actually, but like kinda. 25% chance, hit 4 times, probably gonna bash every swashbuckle. Now, 3 strikes, maybe get a little bit more lucky, right? But they're gonna buff the damage, and they're gonna buff it a lot. So at max damage, it now does 20 more damage than it used to. It now does 360 damage per swashbuckle. Early laning, he's exactly the same. The Diffusal timing is now, I mean, the timing of the Diffusal is the same. The power of the Diffusal is a bit worse because you're losing out on that extra strike, but the Aghanims is now better because the Aghanims did 2 strikes, and now that you just gained, 35 extra damage per max level strike, it means every Aghanim's like hop, you do an extra 70 damage to everything you hit. I think you're going to see Aghanims become a main part of the build. I don't think like first item Aghanims, probably still Diffusal into Aghanims. And I still think this hero is going to do everything he's already done. Sick. Just make this damage lower. And then maybe like the lower damage plus the strike count going down will all like line up. I mean, Lifestealer was in the meta for like a moment and he's being hit across the board. Come on, let's get him out. But I do like the idea of bringing the strike down. I think it's cool. I just think the damage going up is unnecessary. Primal Beast, Onslaught, some nerfs here. Same with the Aghanim Scepter. Damage per line also nerfed. I still think he's a solid hero. Puck, this is a nice change for us supports, getting killed all the time by Puck. So the Shard is not going to search as far for heroes to attack. And then the ultimate, when he has an Aghanims, it's only going to use 90% of his attack speed. So I still think a pretty strong hero. Could probably use a little bit more nerfs. But this one's kind of nice, I guess. This one, like, I think it could be more severe. Sand King is getting 6 base damage, which is kind of bonkers, losing a bit of strength. The issue with Sand King is that his laning stage is a bit weak and punishable by pro teams. In pubs, you often get away with it and sometimes do like quite well, but in pubs, they know how to deal with it, and he has such a bad time. I think his like mid to late game when he hits like the blink timing stuff, like it's pretty good. And I think Bounty House, the Aghanims, is insane, but getting to that point is really tough, especially at a high level. So I don't know if this is enough, but I think it's a really good step forward in helping Sand King's weakest point, which is his laning stage. Shadow Fiends, Shadow Rays, gonna be a flat 75 mana at all levels. This is really good for the hero because he constantly uses Shadow Rays, so it really adds up. This 15 mana difference at max level. I don't know if it'll like totally bring him back in the meta, but he's really dead in the meta, so he needs buffs. I kind of think this is not enough, but maybe we're getting there. Maybe it is enough. I don't know, because like if you pick up early kills or if you can clear stacks more efficiently, I mean, you do snowball, right? So maybe this small change will lead to a lot, but I guess time will tell. I'm very interested in this Silencer change. So Glaze of Wisdom is a great spell for lane harass because you don't draw creep aggro when you manually cast it, but it doesn't like scale all that well, so it sometimes felt funny to take because like, well, actually Q and E are my better spell, so like I really should just max those. That might still be true, I don't know. But now the scaling of Glaze of Wisdom is a little better. From level 1 to 2 used to just be like 1, 1, 2, 3, which means between level 1 and level 2 it like didn't do that much different. But now it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So you start dealing 2 intelligence, and that's pretty interesting. I don't know if it's really enough, but I'm curious, and I'm definitely gonna try it. Maybe like 2 points in Glaives and then like go for the rest. Max it? I don't know, you know? Is it core Silencer? Potentially. But this is very interesting to me. I'm curious to explore it and see what like other people come up with. This Scatter Blast change is really nice for Snapfire. So when people are in the point blank range, it used to do bonus damage. It still does the bonus damage, but now it will also do the bonus attack slow, move slow, and slow duration. It's an extra 0.5 seconds. Sorry, you still can't see that. 0.5 extra seconds. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it essentially means you get like maybe an extra auto attack in that they're still like really slowed by, right? So I think it's pretty good for trading, especially because you're point blank when using it, right? So you want to stand and attack. You don't want to feel like they can fight back. And that extra 50% I think is quite meaningful for that like degree. The cookie's also going to travel faster. I don't think that's really a huge deal, but I mean, kind of nice. Sven's getting 1 base armor less. I don't know, guys. Kind of weird. This hero's really good. Stacking at the pro level did get nerfed, and like some of the jungle creeps are nerfed a little bit, and I guess like BKB's nerfed, the late game Revenant's Brooch, like kind of like, I don't know. It still seems like really good. I don't really understand this. Play Sven. I think he's still really good. Techie's nerf to Sticky Bomb, 3 extra seconds at level 1. A bit of a pain. Still overall does what he needs to do. Just a little bit weaker laning stage. I think you can still play him. TA, some extra damage on Meld, but you kind of leave this point till like a 1-point wonder, which is like the same damage. And in the late game is like 30 more damage. So, I mean, like, in the right game, you can still play TA. You always could. Now it's, like, a little better. Like, whatever. Rest in peace, Terrorblade, Reflection being nerfed. So, 55% Reflection damage at level 1 down to 40. At the end, it is the same damage-wise, but the radius is going down from 500 to 400. So, I think it's going to become a lot harder to play support Terrorblade. I hope you all had fun playing it. I hope you Didn't report too many people playing it. Hey guys, come on, try new fun stuff, right? Whatever. It's probably dead now. I might try it. We'll see if other people try it, but I think it's gonna be a lot harder to use reflection, not only in the laning stage, but then also later in the game to copy like multiple heroes, 400 radius. Like it's a radius for a circle, so like it's gonna be pretty noticeable and it's gonna be sad. Timber Chain at level 1, you're losing 10 damage. Maxed out, you're losing 25 damage. Doesn't seem like a whole bunch maybe, but keep in mind you constantly use Timber Chain throughout the laning stage and fights, so like that damage will add up. And then reactive armor, losing 3 stacks at level 1, eventually ends up the same. I believe it's like 1.2 armor and 0.9 HP regen. Yeah, that's like what those stack loss means to you. So nerf to Timbersaw. I don't think this is the end of the world. I think reactive armor, not that big of a deal. I mean, like a nerf to a hero who needed a nerf, but doesn't kill the hero. The Timber Chain damage I'm interested in. This might add up, but I still think it's kind of okay. So, like, his Q and his ult still do the same damage, right? So, I think this hero is really broken. I still think he's going to be really good. Oh no, Tinker buffs. So, base armor up by 2. Scary. Defense matrix, cast range going up. So, it used to be a flat 650. It actually starts at 700 and goes all the way up to 850. Support Tinker? Maybe. We'll think on it. Not too much of a Tinker player myself, but he's become a lot tankier in the laning stage, apparently. So I'll just have to see if our pubs feel a lot worse or not, since I don't have a great read on Tinker. He really has not been in the meta very much at all. I think there's a lot of heroes who can find him, which is a pain, and his laning stage has not been that strong. That's my rough take on someone who doesn't play Tinker and has not seen a lot of Tinker. If any of you play more, I'd love to hear about it, but this is very interesting for support Tinker potentially. We'll see. I'll let you guys know. Tiny, super good hero, base damage on tree grab going down. I don't think this is the end of the world. I think it's a fair nerf to a very strong hero, but for you support players, it does mean your laning stage is a little bit worse, but not that bad, because I mean Tiny was historically a very bad laner. I still think you'll get tree grab and like play around this. And if your lane's like a little bit worse because of that, maybe you're gonna go over and like creep drag instead. But just for reference, you have 5 attacks, so it is 6 damage off at level 1, which ends up being like 30 damage over the course of 5 attacks. So it's sad, but not that big of a deal. And Core Tiny, like I also think he's like he's gonna be perfectly fine with this. Troll Shard stacks going down a little bit. Don't think it's a huge deal. Underlord, this seems like a good change. So they're swapping the Scepter and a talent essentially. Level 15, this AoE talent is now going to be a 30% Pit of Malice slow, and then the Aghanims, instead of having a slow, it's going to increase the radius by 100 for Pit of Malice. Atrophy Aura is also just going to be straight up better. Instead of 2, 4, 6, 8 per creep, it is now 3, 5, 7, 9. That will add up. That 1 extra damage per creep is going to be a big deal in the laning stage, especially at the highest level where like all the little bits of damage matter. I think we'll see more Underlord. This seems really good to me. I will keep my eye on it. What about support? No, please, no support Underlord. I don't believe in it, but core Underlord, specifically offlane Underlord, I could definitely see it working. Ursa slow resistance, going to be a little higher with overpower. I don't really know if that was his issue, but he's got it now. Then Void Spirit, dissimulate damage is going up a little bit. I thought this hero was fine. I didn't really think he needed a buff, but he's going to have 20 more damage, so okay. And then Weaver, Geminate attack damage also going up a little bit by 5. Also kind of thought Weaver was all right, but like it kind of had to be the right game for Weaver. So slight buff, maybe that increases the range of like when it's a good Weaver game. I think it's okay, even though I hate playing against Weaver. It's always like so frustrating. Maybe I need to become a Weaver player and then it'll be fun. But yeah, slight buff to him. I will, of course, update you guys as the patch continues to develop and we actually figure out what is good and not just like an initial reading impressions. I will, we'll get to it when we get to it. Let me know if you think I missed anything, by the way. I do try your guys' suggestions. Some of them are really crazy and I never get to, but if you guys think like, oh, Lich is really good, then I'll play Lich, usually on stream. Drop by if you want to see it live. Thank you for watching. I'll maybe see you in a future video or stream. Bye.